My heart tells me these babies are gone. My heart tells me that.
2 children gone by morning. No trace. No explanation. What happened on Gerlach Road? A pink blanket lying half buried in brush. The boot print of a dinosaur boot wearing 4-year-old pressed into soggy earth. These were the fragments left behind on May 2nd, 2025. In the silent woods surrounding a rural home in Pictou County, Nova Scotia, marking the first terrifying moments of the unsolved disappearance of 6-year-old Lilly Sullivan and 4-year-old Jack Sullivan. Lansdowne Station, a cluster of dirt roads edged by dense forest and rough terrain. Secluded, peaceful. Here lived the Sullivan family, Mother Malaya Brooks, Murray, stepfather Daniel Martell, and their 3 young children, Lily, Jack, and baby Meadow, aged 1. On the morning of May 2nd, the house was quiet. Lily wandered from bedroom to bedroom. Jack's giggles drifted from the kitchen. Their parents, in the adjacent bedroom with Meadow, didn't hear the sliding back door, one they described as unusually silent, and assumed nothing was amiss. But within minutes, the children vanished. The sliding door creaked shut behind them, or so family would later recall the moment that followed, a slow, creeping dread. By 10 a.m., with the children gone, panic set in. Calls were made. Pleas screamed. At 12:25 p.m., RCMP issued a public alert. 2 vulnerable children missing from Gerlach Road, area of Lansdowne Station. To the world, ordinary kids from a picturesque rural Nova Scotia home. To their mother, Lily was bright, full of light brown hair and bangs, around 4 feet tall, and about 60 pounds, often in pink boots and a strawberry print backpack. Jack was younger, just 4, blondish hair, dinosaur-patterned blue rubber boots, wearing pull-up diapers under Under Armour pants. Neighbors described them as inseparable. Lily protective of her brother, Jack adventurous, trusting the forest beyond their yard. Their stepfather, who asked to take polygraph tests himself, insisted they would never wander too far. Here was the unsettling thought. This could be anyone's child. And yet, they were gone. By early afternoon, the RCMP mobilized a massive multi-agency search. Ground search teams, drone operators, search dogs, and helicopters combed over 5.5 square kilometers of dense brush, swamp, and fallen timber. Hundreds of trained volunteers joined. In all, around 160 people at one point. On May 7th, with no sightings, the full-scale search was officially scaled back, described as unlikely they were still alive by Staff Sergeant Curtis McKinnon. Yet, targeted searches persisted in the days that followed. In late May, RCMP confirmed surveillance footage placing the children with family members on May 1st, the day before their disappearance, in a public location that was not revealed publicly. This added a puzzling twist. They hadn't vanished unexpectedly that morning. They seemed fine, less than 24 hours before. By June 11th, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police had interviewed 54 individuals, and polygraph tests were administered to some. The Division of Truth, Verification, and Major Crime Units intensified scrutiny. Interviews, device sightures, forensic analysis of materials, including that recovered pink blanket, and more. Over 800 investigative tasks were underway. Authorities collected and reviewed approximately 5,000 video files from local businesses, roads, and public areas. Over 600 tips had been logged from the public, each one weighed and investigated. No evidence of force or abduction had been confirmed, but neither had evidence of simple wandering. The narrative was fracturing. Nova Scotians, Canadians, and international observers watched in horror and heartbreak. Flags on social media, vigils, community bake sales, all focused on bringing the children home. In mid-June, Nova Scotia's Justice Ministry announced a reward up to 150,000 Canadian dollars for information deemed of investigative value. As news outlets reported daily developments, scalebacks, renewed ground efforts, polygraph revelations, and bleak expert opinions on survival, the emotional undercurrent only deepened. Grief, hope, suspicion, and the inevitable question, what do lost children reveal about the fine line between safety and tragedy? So begins the haunting timeline. What occurred on that silent slide of wood? Did Lilly and Jack step outside into danger? Or was something darker at play? 2025 Mommy. If I ever got lost, would you come find me? That question, reportedly whispered by Lilly just days before she vanished, now echoes like a haunting prophecy. To neighbors and the rural Nova Scotia community, the Sullivan family appeared picture perfect. A modest home tucked among towering trees, 3 children, a young couple trying to make ends meet in quiet Lansdowne Station. But behind that facade, something darker simmered. Because when children vanish without a trace, it's never just about the moment they disappeared. It's about everything that led up to it. The Sullivan home was a small, weathered house nestled at the end of Gairloch Road. No sidewalks, no security cameras, just an overgrown yard and the forest pressing in on all sides. Inside, 5 people sharing a tight space. Mafia Brooks Murray, the children's biological mother, was just 25. Bright, soft-spoken, with a complicated past and a fiery maternal instinct. She had Lilly and Jack from a previous relationship, one that ended in court battles and custody exchanges. Daniel Martel, her partner, was the children's stepfather, a quiet, wiry man in his 30s, known to keep to himself. He wasn't biologically related to the kids, but he called them his own. In interviews, he insisted, "I raised them like my own children. I would never let anything happen to them." But not everyone was convinced. Investigators quickly realized the timeline surrounding May 2nd wasn't as clean as it first appeared. For one, why was there such a delay in reporting the children missing? Witnesses said it may have been nearly 2 hours before emergency services were called. Mafia later told police she assumed Lilly and Jack were playing just outside, that it wasn't unusual for them to be out in the yard, especially on warmer mornings. But the yard led directly into miles of woods, with bears, foxes, swamps, and jagged ravines. No fences, no trails, no reason for 2 small children to wander there alone. Then came the odd behavior. Searchers reported that neither parent seemed panicked during the first hours of the investigation. One volunteer described the couple as weirdly calm. Another said Daniel appeared more annoyed than distraught. And when offered a chance to help in the search directly, Daniel declined, stating he had to stay behind with the baby. It was an explanation that made sense on paper, but not in the eyes of the public, who began asking, what father doesn't run into the forest to find his missing kids? Digging into the family history revealed a growing web of custody disputes and personal tension. Jack and Lily's biological father had recently tried to gain more visitation rights. He lived 2 towns over and had not seen the children in months. According to friends, he and Malaya did not get along, and their past was marred by protective orders, emotional outbursts, and accusations. Meanwhile, Daniel's role in the home was vague. He wasn't listed on any official documents as a guardian. Yet he had control over many aspects of the children's lives: what they ate, where they went, how they behaved. One neighbor claimed she overheard Daniel scolding Lily harshly just weeks before she disappeared, accusing her of snooping around where she wasn't supposed to be. That phrase would later send a chill through investigators. On May 1st, 2025, the family had gone into town. Surveillance footage, later confirmed, showed the entire group stopping at a local gas station and convenience store. Lilly and Jack can be seen holding hands, wearing their signature backpacks, laughing. Nothing seemed off. Except for one thing, that footage was never released to the public. RCMP cited the need to protect the integrity of the investigation. But this choice only fueled online speculation. What were the kids doing? Did someone else follow them? Was there another adult present? The day ended with a normal dinner. Mafia recalled Lilly helping feed her baby sister. Jack fell asleep in front of the television. She tucked them in around 9:30 p.m. By the next morning, they were gone. As media pressure mounted, the parents gave interviews, sometimes together, sometimes separately. At one point, Daniel requested a lie detector test. Authorities didn't say whether he passed or failed, but behind closed doors, detectives were growing frustrated. Statements kept shifting. The time the children were last seen changed. Details about the back door didn't match up. Even the clothes the kids were supposedly wearing kept being described differently. Then came a pivotal twist. A neighbor claimed they saw a white van, one not familiar to the area, slowly driving down Gerlach Road around 9 a.m. on May 2nd. It was never confirmed. No license plate, no surveillance cameras on that stretch. But it opened the door to a chilling possibility. Was this a stranger abduction or a staged scene? 6. Heise. The door doesn't creak. You can barely hear it open. If you weren't looking, you'd never know. They left. That's what Mafia Brooks Murray told investigators during one of her early interviews. But what if they never left at all? The most harrowing theory, the one whispered between detectives behind closed doors and shouted across social media comment sections, was this: what if the entire story was a lie? After the initial search yielded no sign of the children, RCMP returned to the Sullivan home, not as rescuers, but as investigators. The transition was subtle. No flashing lights, no police tape, but inside, the air shifted. The focus turned inward. Forensic teams swept the house. They examined footprints in the soil outside. They sprayed for blood. They looked for signs of a struggle, or traces of the children's DNA in places they shouldn't be. Or worse, places where their DNA was missing altogether. One small detail caught their attention immediately. The children's backpacks were gone. Now, that might seem innocent at first. Maybe they liked to play adventure. Maybe they wore them all the time. But those backpacks, investigators later said, were in unusually pristine condition when found discarded in the brush days later. Far too clean for 2 children who supposedly wandered into the forest alone. Even more chilling, inside the house, there were no muddy footprints, no signs of hasty dressing, or open drawers, no clothes pulled out, no favorite toys missing. The morning routine had left no trace at all. Daniel Martel gave his statement early. He said he was awake before 9 a.m., feeding the baby, while Mafia rested. He claimed he heard the children playing, then noticed the back door was ajar. "I thought they were just in the yard," he said. But his version raised questions. Why didn't he check sooner? Why didn't the dogs bark? And why did he wait so long to call 911? When asked whether he tried to follow the children's footprints or call their names into the woods, his response was measured. Too measured. According to one officer, it was like he was giving us answers he had rehearsed. Mafia, on the other hand, was erratic. She cried during interviews. She often referred to her children in the present tense. Lilly is smart. She loves strawberries. Jack plays with his dinosaurs every day. But her timeline was murky. She said she didn't hear them leave. She said the baby kept her occupied. She said she assumed Daniel had them. Then she changed her mind. Maybe she did hear something. Maybe she did check the backyard once. Each conversation shifted slightly. At one point, a detective noted a bruise on her arm. She dismissed it, but it raised a question no one dared ask aloud. Had there been an argument that morning? There is one full hour between approximately 9:10 m and 10:15 a.m. that no one can account for. No confirmed sightings, no calls, no texts. The children are simply gone. Phone records showed no outgoing calls from either parent during that hour. No frantic messages. No search history for missing children or what to do if your child disappears. Nothing. It was as if the parents didn't even realize the children were gone, until it was too late to make it look like an accident. 6 days after the disappearance, search teams made a grim discovery. Lily's pink blanket, half buried in pine needles, roughly 300 meters from the edge of the Sullivan property. It had been tucked carefully under a log, as though placed there, not discarded, not dropped in a hurry, placed. And next to it, Jack's dinosaur boot print, only one. There were no drag marks, no struggle, no sign of the children going further. It was as if they had stood there and vanished. Some investigators believe the scene was staged, that the blanket and boot print were placed after the fact, to give the illusion the children had left voluntarily. One even asked aloud, what kind of person creates a breadcrumb trail leading nowhere? Behind the scenes, CPS, the Canadian equivalent of Child Protective Services, quietly joined the investigation. Rumors surfaced that the family had previous contact with authorities, concerns of neglect, disputes about discipline, even whispers that one child had once told a teacher he didn't like going home. But no formal complaints had ever been upheld. There were no open cases. Still, something didn't sit right. Why were there locks on the outside of the children's bedroom doors? Why had a neighbor heard screaming 2 nights before the disappearance? And why had Daniel abruptly quit his job the week prior? Nothing could be proven. But everything began to feel suspicious. The deeper the investigation went, the more plausible a horrifying theory became. What if the children never made it out of the house that morning? What if something happened inside, and the forest was just a convenient cover story? This theory, unproven, but increasingly supported by circumstantial evidence, changed everything. Because if the story of the sliding door was false, then every other detail, every alibi, every interview could be a performance. They acted like a happy family online, but they weren't. That was the chilling assessment from one of Maleha's closest friends, a woman who had spent time in their home, who had watched the couple's smiling social media posts, and who would later confess, I should have seen it coming. Because beneath the filtered photos and cheerful captions was something quietly unraveling. On Instagram, Maleha painted a portrait of love and motherhood. There were photos of Lily holding baby Meadow on her lap, Jack wearing superhero capes in the backyard, even the occasional post about Daniel, my rock, our protector. The captions were poetic, emotional. Followers believed she was living the dream. Young, beautiful, surrounded by children, surviving in the simplicity of nature. But the truth, investigators would later discover, was far darker. The family was under intense financial stress. Daniel had been unemployed since early March. Maleha's part-time work as a hairdresser barely covered groceries. Utility bills were months behind. Their cell service had been temporarily suspended. One of the reasons police had difficulty reaching them the morning of the disappearance, they were isolated. No car, no consistent Wi-Fi, no family living nearby. And the pressures of raising 3 children, one of them an infant, were beginning to take a toll. One neighbor, who lived a few hundred meters down Gairloch Road, later contacted police with a disturbing claim. She said that about 2 weeks before the disappearance, she heard yelling coming from the Sullivan home late at night. She couldn't make out the words, but it was sharp, angry, and constant. She described it as a grown man screaming and a child crying. Oh. The next day, she saw Daniel outside, calm, smoking, waving like nothing had happened. She never reported it. It wasn't my business, she told investigators. Now I wish I'd said something. Oh. On May 5, 3 days after the children went missing, police accessed the couple's cloud accounts and uncovered dozens of personal videos and photos stored automatically. Most very innocent. Birthday parties, playground moments, dance-offs in the kitchen. But one short clip, buried in an unlabeled folder, changed everything. It was only 38 seconds long, filmed sometime in early April. The footage showed Daniel in the living room. He was holding Jack by the arm, too tightly. Jack was crying. Not tantrum crying, terror crying. Lily stood in the corner, frozen. Daniel didn't strike Jack, but his voice was sharp, shaking with rage. If you don't listen, you sleep outside. I'm not doing this again. The clip ended abruptly. There was no laughter, no playfulness, just silence. Malaya's voice could be heard faintly behind the camera. Daniel, stop. You're scaring them. When confronted with the video, both parents insisted it was discipline taken too far. A bad moment. But to the RCMP, it proved something more damning. A culture of fear inside that house. 1-year-old Meadow was too young to speak, but her behavior raised red flags during her temporary custody with social services. She flinched at raised voices. She refused to sleep alone. She cried uncontrollably when placed in dark rooms. A child psychologist noted signs of emotional dysregulation likely caused by a high-stress environment. While this didn't provide concrete evidence about what happened to Lily and Jack, it confirmed something crucial. This was not a safe home. In the forensic sweep of Daniel's phone, investigators found a deleted search history, fragments of phrases retrieved from device memory. Among them, how long can a child survive in the woods? Can police search your property without warrant? What happens if a kid drowns and no one sees? The searches weren't time-stamped with exact precision, but they were dated within 3 days prior to the disappearance. When questioned, Daniel claimed the phone had been infected with spam or pop-ups. Police didn't believe him. Everything was closing in. Behind on rent, no work, 3 children crying for attention, no car to escape, a forest outside thick with shadows. There's a term used in family psychology, multi-generational stress collapse. It describes a household where the pressure of life outweighs the emotional resources of the adults inside it, where anger becomes instinct and escape becomes fantasy. Was that what happened here? Did one moment of frustration spiral into tragedy? By mid-June, despite everything, the video, the internet searches, the inconsistencies, there was still no forensic proof that a crime had occurred. No blood, no bodies, no witnesses. Legally, the case remained a missing persons investigation. But in the hearts of detectives, it had become something else entirely. We should have gotten there sooner. Before the storm, before the rain took everything. That's what one exhausted search and rescue leader said weeks after the disappearance. His voice cracked, eyes hollow from combing the woods day after day. Because the forest outside the Sullivan home didn't just swallow Lily and Jack, it swallowed the truth. From the moment the 911 call was made, the clock started ticking. In cases involving small children, every hour matters. Every footprint fades. Every scent trail weakens. But early responders faced a problem: mixed information. According to multiple sources, dispatchers received conflicting statements from Malahia and Daniel. One said the children had just gone missing. The other said they'd been gone for over an hour. At one point, someone mentioned the kids might be playing by the creek, but the family later insisted they never allowed the children near water. This inconsistency caused a critical delay in coordinating the ground search. By the time RCMP arrived with trained dogs and drones, 3 full hours had passed. The forest surrounding Gairloch Road is not a public park. It's untamed wilderness, dense pine and spruce, moss-covered rocks, steep ravines, and cold pockets of swamp so deep they can swallow a full-grown man. Local searchers knew the terrain well, but even they struggled. Some described it as a green maze. Others said it closes in on you the moment you step off the trail. Thermal drones were deployed. Helicopters swept from above. Infrared equipment scanned for body heat. But by nightfall, not a single trace had been found. Not a sock, not a toy, not even a fresh footprint. And then came the storm. At 2:10 a.m. on the night of May 2, a torrential rainstorm rolled in over Pictou County. Over 40 millimeters of rain fell in just 4 hours, washing away scent trails, softening the ground, and turning key evidence into mud. Dog teams were called off. Some areas became so flooded that even ATVs and four-wheelers couldn't enter. Any potential signs: blood, clothing fibers, food wrappers, were erased. One investigator would later say, "Whatever happened in those woods, we'll never fully know. The storm buried it all." Henceforth, on May 6, 4 days into the search, a volunteer team stumbled upon something strange. A clearing, roughly 500 meters from the Sullivan home. In the center, a small impression in the mossy ground, like someone or something had laid there recently. Near it, 2 items: a child's sock, blue, muddy, half buried under leaves; a crumpled juice box, unopened, with tiny teeth marks near the straw. Both were bagged and tested. Neither showed usable fingerprints. No blood, no DNA, no confirmation they belonged to Lilly or Jack. But here's the twist. The area had already been searched the day before, meaning either the items were missed or they were placed there after. This discovery lit a fire under the RCMP. The possibility of someone returning to the woods to plant or move evidence took on terrifying implications. Multiple reports surfaced of a white van seen driving slowly along Gairloch Road in the days surrounding the disappearance. One resident said the van stopped briefly near her property on May 1. The night before the children vanished, she described a tall man, wearing a ball cap, sitting behind the wheel. She waved. He didn't wave back. No license plate was recorded. No security footage existed on that stretch of road. No van was ever located. Some believed it could have been unrelated. A delivery. A lost traveler. But the timing was too coincidental to ignore. And so, another theory emerged. Was this an outside abduction? Perfectly timed during a moment of chaos? Or was it part of a larger, planned event? 2 weeks after the disappearance, a new team took over part of the search. Reviewing drone footage from day 2, one technician spotted something unusual. A flash of color, deep in the woods. Something pink, barely visible under a tree. Searchers were sent. They found a shredded piece of pink fabric, tangled in a low-hanging branch. Not far from it, a child's mitten. It matched a set Lilly owned, but no one had any explanation for how it got there. In a part of the forest already searched twice. Had someone returned? Had searchers missed it? Or was the forest revealing clues slowly, piece by piece, on its own terms? By the 3rd week, tension mounted, not just between investigators and the public, but among search volunteers themselves. Some believed the parents were innocent. and the children had wandered off and perished. Others were convinced something sinister had happened inside the home. Arguments broke out. Rumors circulated. One volunteer group left altogether, frustrated by what they called constant miscommunication. But a small core remained searching, hoping, refusing to give up. Eventually, as summer began creeping in, the search shifted from rescue to recovery. That quiet, devastating transition. No one wants to name. When hope turns into hypothesis, when missing turns into presumed dead, the woods, still, silent, and thick with secrets, stood unmoved. No bodies, no final clue, just traces. They told me to stand down. I told them I'd rather lose my badge than my conscience. That was the final statement of Graham Keller, a retired RCMP sergeant who walked away from his pension and rank because he believed the official investigation into Lilly and Jack Sullivan's disappearance was deliberately steering away from the truth in a case already shrouded in rain, woods, and whispers. Keller would become the most controversial figure in the entire ordeal. To some, he was a hero. To others, a lunatic. But what he uncovered was chilling. By early June 2025, the Sullivan case had become a national obsession. Every news cycle brought a new theory, a new expert, a new televised segment dissecting the parents' body language. Online sleuths flooded social media with analysis, some insightful, some conspiratorial, many cruel. The parents stopped giving interviews. Memorial teddy bears piled up outside the house. Someone hung a banner from a highway overpass. Bring Lilly and Jack home. But behind the scenes, the investigation had stalled. No bodies, no charges, no answers. And then, Keller made his move. Graham Keller had served with the RCMP for 22 years. He knew the terrain, the protocols, and, most importantly, the blind spots in how missing persons cases were handled. He had been following the Sullivan case from the sidelines, quietly consulting with former colleagues. But what drew him in completely was the release of the search area map to the public. Keller noticed something odd. An entire quadrant of forest behind the Sullivan home had been marked as inaccessible, and that didn't sit right with him. He'd hunted in those woods as a younger man. He knew there were logging trails. Narrow, old, impassable. So why label it inaccessible? Keller began walking the area himself, alone, unarmed, with just a notebook and a camera. He tracked fallen branches, moot patterns, changes in moss compression, and then he found something strange. Deep within the inaccessible zone, about 1.2 kilometers from the Sullivan property, was an abandoned hunting blind, a wooden platform built into a tree, partially collapsed, covered in dead leaves. Inside it, candy wrappers, juice boxes, both identical brands to those found at the Sullivan home. And most disturbing, a child's drawing, torn at the edge, showing a stick figure family. One of the stick kids had an X drawn over it. He submitted the evidence. Quietly, the official task force told him, "Thanks, but we've already cleared that area." End quote. He went public the next day. Keller's revelation lit the internet on fire. Podcasters, YouTubers, Reddit forums. They all tore into the photos he released. Dozens of theories erupted. The blind man theory, a recluse living in the woods abducted the kids. The sugar trail theory, the children were lured away with candy. The X theory, Lilly had been marked for removal by someone close to her. One particularly viral thread connected Keller's drawing to a piece of art Lilly had made weeks before, a similar stick figure style, found posted on Malaya's now deleted Instagram. It was enough to fuel outrage. Demands for renewed search orders. Petitions for a full review. But the RCMP refused. They claimed Keller's findings were non-conclusive and reminded the public that no evidence of abduction had ever been found. Another thread Keller chased was the elusive white van. He dug through old traffic camera footage, not from Gerlach Road, but from nearby highway intersections. And one frame stood out. May 1, 9:46 p.m. A white Dodge van heading north, with two figures in the front seat. No license plate was visible, but the van had a distinctive dent above the left headlight, a dent that would soon reappear in a garage 40 kilometers away. Keller visited over a dozen small-town mechanics. Most had no memory of fixing such a vehicle. But one young apprentice at a back road garage remembered something. A white Dodge van, brought in for a headlight repair on May 3. The customer, a man alone, paid in cash, used a fake name. Keller begged RCMP to follow up. They thanked him and filed the tip away. That's when Keller lost it. He went live on Facebook, naming the garage, showing the blurry traffic cam photo, and accusing the investigation of willful negligence. Within 24 hours, his post had over 2 million views. Keller was subpoenaed. The RCMP issued a statement condemning his reckless interference. His former colleagues turned against him. He was fined, banned from accessing official records, and eventually charged with obstruction. But the public didn't care. To them, he was the only one actually doing something. Thousands now believed the case had been mishandled from the start. That crucial hours were wasted. That tips were ignored. That someone was protecting someone. And if that were true, who? I didn't kill them, but I know what happened. That's what he said. Through cracked lips, head bowed, voice barely audible. A family friend, previously unknown to the public, had just walked into the Pictou County detachment and asked to speak anonymously. He didn't bring a lawyer. He didn't ask for immunity. But what he told investigators behind closed doors changed everything. Because in a case shrouded in lost time, conflicting stories, and forest shadows, this man knew the ending. He was known only as Evan in RCMP transcripts. A 29-year-old drifter who sometimes worked odd jobs for the Sullivan family, splitting firewood, fixing gutters, watching the kids when Maleha needed a break. Not officially employed, no listed address, but always around. He was never on the radar, not mentioned in interviews, not named in any media reports. Yet when he sat down in that interview room, he knew details only insiders could know. And one detail broke the case open. According to Evan, the tension in the Sullivan household had been escalating for weeks. Fights, screaming, threats, Jack wetting himself in fear, Lilly staying quiet, too quiet. On the evening of May 1, Evan was allegedly at the house helping Daniel move a broken washer out of the basement. The kids were already in bed. After they finished, Evan claimed he stayed for a drink. Daniel was nervous, pacing, saying things like, "She's gonna take them from me. I know it. Estu, she said she'll call the fucking courts again. Estu, I'm not letting them go back to him. Estu." Evan says he brushed it off, thought Daniel was blowing off steam. But then Daniel said something darker. "They're better off in the woods than back with that prick. Estu." It didn't make sense at the time. It sounded like a metaphor. But Evan said when he woke up the next morning and turned on the news, he knew it wasn't. Evan told investigators there was a clearing Daniel used sometimes, a secluded spot deep in the woods, reachable only by an old logging trail. Past the hunting blind Keller had discovered, Daniel had taken him there once to smoke and get away from the screaming, and Evan gave them directions. 3 days later, a private search team, not RCMP, followed the trail, and what they found was too late and too haunting. At the center of the clearing was a disturbed patch of earth, a sunken depression in the moss, circled by broken twigs and collapsed fern. Cadaver dogs immediately alerted. RCMP sealed off the area within the hour. Forensic teams arrived, and though they never made a public announcement, the search was officially over. Inside the shallow grave, fabric scraps matching Lily's clothes, tiny teeth fragments, burned plastic, enough to confirm death, but not enough to reconstruct the full story. It was clear the bodies had been moved. When Daniel Martel was brought back in, he denied everything, denied knowing Evan well, denied the clearing, denied the hunting blind, the juice boxes, the drawings, the basement threats. But when they showed him the photos from the gravesite, he said nothing, not a word, not a breath, just stared, and then finally whispered. They were just supposed to sleep. He asked for a lawyer. The interview ended. No formal charges were filed, because in the absence of full remains, without time of death, without cause, and with 2 people potentially involved, the Crown prosecutors were left in a bind. No confession, no murder weapon, no certainty about who delivered the fatal act, just 2 missing children, and a grave hidden by trees. To this day, no one has been charged with the murders of Lilly and Jack Sullivan. Evan vanished. Some say he left the province. Daniel and Malaya separated soon after. The baby, Meadow, was placed in permanent foster care. The public was outraged. Online groups flooded police with messages, petitions, threats. But the case remains officially classified as unsolved. A small memorial now stands in the clearing where the children were found. 2 wooden crosses, a plush dinosaur, now waterlogged, and a note etched into stone. We looked for you. The forest kept you. We will never stop whispering your names. The Sullivan case reminds us that not all monsters hide in the shadows. Some live in homes, smile in family photos, post birthday cakes and bedtime stories, while darkness grows behind closed doors. So we're left with one last question. How many other children live in houses like that right now? And would we know before it's too late?